What's going on? It's your boy DameSmiff. And so we're going to explore what I would like to call a ceremony of celebrating 50 years of hip hop. Now, I do want to kind of connect it to the technological side of it, or really just the technology industry, and kind of really give a background on how we got to this point in only 50 years, because it's kind of exponential how fast and how quickly things have grown, right? And so if you're interested in conversations like this, make sure you hit the like button so you can show more people videos like this, and then hit the subscribe button so that way you can see the latest video I upload. So let's get into it. And today's concerts without sound is going to be Grandmaster Flash's performance at the, I believe it is the Alpha Theta Pioneer DJ. Believe this is a showcase. Yes, it's a showcase. And basically it's a technological showcase of a lot of musical and sound equipment and things like that, entertainment systems, speakers, controllers, a bunch of different things, right? And Grandmaster Flash was blessed with the opportunity to perform and celebrate 50 years of hip hop there. And it's interesting to just think about how far we've come as far as technology, because I was born in 92, and before that it was almost like the dark ages compared to where we are now in 2025, and it wasn't that much long ago. So it's kind of crazy. So I have some notes here to kind of explain the history of what we're going through, or what we've been through and will be going through as far as technology. But I want to go over that before we look at the performance, so then you can see how it works in real time. So I have here in 1975, the technological landscape was on the cusp of some truly transformative changes, particularly in the realm of computing and communication. So, computing and communication is just like crunching numbers, solving problems, filling out equations. Communication is like what we're doing here, where I'm sending audio to you, I'm sending words to you, I'm sending sound to you, I'm sending visuals to you. This is us communicating, and I'm basically putting all these different mediums, meaning kinds of communications, together into one form, meaning one big product for you. So you can hear me, you can see me, and for some of you with the captions on, you can read what I'm saying. And we've gone a long way. And so it's weird to say that it was hard to do one of those things individually, to where now I can just pretty much live stream everything at the push of a button. So one of the first things that started to come out was personal computing. So like PC systems, people didn't have computers in their homes. You've all seen, well, if you haven't, there are pictures of the first computers, and they were about as big as rooms, like as big as your master bedroom. And it was because they needed a lot of, hardware, because we didn't really understand how to make, microchips and all this crazy stuff now. But if you needed something to think about how to solve an equation, it took a lot of effort to get it done. And so, while not yet mainstream, the mid 1970s saw the birth of the personal computer. And what they mean by not yet mainstream, meaning like you had to be on the in crowd to kind of have a personal computer. But if there was one, it was more than likely like a government building that had it, maybe a school or a library that had one. And it says the Altair 8800 in 1975 is often credited as one of the first commercially successful personal computers, sparking the interest of hobbyists and laying the groundwork for the PC revolution. So I'm only talking about like prominent inventions of the past 50 years, or 50 years ago, is because the technology directly affects the music. So I could sit here and name like new guitars that came out, new MPCs and beat making machines that came out, software and things like that. But this doesn't really happen without the foundation of what technology has been trying to do. Okay. And so something as simple as having a computer in your home made it easier for the musician. You see what I'm saying? Having a guitar didn't make it easier for the person who needed a personal computer. You see how that works? So now that we can kind of see how linear the relationship is, we can kind of understand why it's important to really respect technology and really understand what it does for us as a tool. And so the next note I have is the dawn of portable music. And so just like how you can get a computer into your home, now you can take your music outside of your home. So the Sony Walkman was introduced in 1979, but the groundwork for personal portable audio was being laid in the mid to late 1970s with advancements in cassette tape technology and portable players. So I had a cassette tape player now that I think about it, and I'm sure, yeah, me being born in 1992, I had a cassette tape Walkman. And then I had CD playing Walkmans, and I had the anti-skips. I had all that stuff. And I remember trying to figure out what a CD is. We didn't know there was film in between two pieces of glass until we were like in middle school, figuring out what thumbprints did to the CD, all that stupid science stuff. I had all that stuff. I had cassette playing boom boxes where we, as little kids, we'd pull out all the ribbon from and the tape and stuff like that, and then try to wind it back up and see if it still played and stuff like. Oh yeah. We had all that stuff. It was stupid. It was very stupid, but that's what we had at the time. And so it says this invention would go to revolutionize how people listen to music. So think of it this way: when you had an iPod, or you can stream your music, right? You go directly to, let's say, your favorite artist or whatever. But just imagine someone hands you a tape and you read it and it just says DMX, stop being greedy. Listen, that's life changing. You don't know what's about to happen. You don't know what's all right. So that's the difference between like hardware and software, portability and stationary type of things like that. So having to go to a show and watch DMX perform is different than having it readily available at the perfect, performance every single time at your fingertips. Same with like classical music. Now we can like just listen to the greatest musicians in the world anywhere we want, whenever we want, if we can record it. And so that changed everything. And then of course capitalism and just making products and stuff like that. It just, the ideas were just infinite. And so the next thing that happened was video gaming. The video game industry was in its infancy. Atari's Pong, initially in a arcade game in 1972, gained immense popularity, and a home version was released in 1975. So remember, just a personal computer, portable music. Now people can play video games in their home. They don't have to leave the house and go to the arcade. That's game changing. Get it? Bringing video games into people's living rooms and setting the stage for a massive entertainment industry. So now you have basically a monster. Like, you can change people's lives now. You can control like what they watch, what they listen to, what they do as far as like reaching a high score on a new game. There's so many options you have now as far as an industry. And then next we have the first digital camera. Shout out to Instagram. While not the sleek devices we know today, the first digital camera was invented by Kodak engineer Steven Sasson in 1975. It was a bulky prototype that captured black and white images onto a cassette tape. That's kind of crazy to think about. And so it says it's a far cry from modern digital photography, but it's a significant step nonetheless. So before that, I believe like in like probably like the 1920s, maybe in 1910s, photography was like super manual. Like you had to have gunpowder, you had to have film, you had to have your subjects in order, you had to have damn near the temperature right. It was a lot harder than trying to just click a button and it saves the image on a piece of cassette film, and then you just process that. That had to be game changing for people who were trying to really make a career for themselves and really develop good photography and a name for themselves. And then the next thing we have is word processing. So word processing is just typing and the ability to create let's say like a letter or email on a computer, so that way you can either print it, save it as data, or log it and things like that. That's all it is, just processing words, putting words in places they need to be. The concept of electronic word processing was developing, moving away from typewriters. So typewriters is just manual word processing. That's all it is. Like you're just putting words on paper. Handwriting is the first word processing, I guess you want to say. While dedicated word processors came a bit later, the foundational ideas and software were being explored in 1970s, which would eventually lead to the word processing software we use today. So a lot of the things we use today kind of just use the same skeletons from back then, caps lock, enter, the QWERTY keyboard, all this stuff like that, right? And then lastly, the MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. While the first MRI scan of a human wasn't until 1977, the principles and initial developments of this revolutionary medical imaging technology were taking place in the early to mid 1970s. So in only 50 years, we've gone that fast. We've gone from the first mobile music playing portable device to live streaming on this video. Like I could play a song from a dead artist right now in this video if I wanted to with like 2 clicks of a button. Okay. So the idea of thinking like, man, we got to like get our band together, get in the studio, make sure the studio's got enough resources for us to record our session, go in, mix it, and then put that on another reel. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So now we have all this new technology, which is helping people make music easier, faster, sometimes better. And I think what we need to appreciate is that, ironically enough, this is hosted by Pioneer, right? But we do have our pioneers in position leading us as far as the mastery of the use of this technology. So let's watch literally the Grandmaster himself perform his 50-year celebration of hip hop. And the first thing we notice is the logo, right? But the key thing about noticing that logo, and I'm gonna point it out as often as I can, is that this is the exclusive footage. This came from the cameraman's camera. This ain't no cell phone TikTok footage, boy. This is the real thing. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to see some really, really high quality stuff. And again, this is concerts without sound. So we're not going to hear a thing, but we're going to be able to break down what we see, what we notice, and what we may, want to change. Let's see. The first thing I see is the setup. I think this is, I'm not sure if this is a certain name of a showcase. I don't see it, but I think this is just a stage for Pioneer DJ, and they're hosting the 50th anniversary performance for Grandmaster Flash, if that makes sense, right? There's a lot of, I guess you could say, layers to this performance here, but it looks like they're at a technology showcase where they're probably looking at new TVs, new inventions, new software, probably new musical equipment and things like that. But I think a lot of it is not really focused on this performance as far as this entire room. So this is probably the biggest thing going on in this event right now. With that being said, that probably explains why these graphics are so fucking crazy right now. As intricate as they are, it's rivaling like some video games out there. This is really cool. So here we have the man himself, Mr. Grandmaster Flash, and this is all his socials down here if you guys want to check him out. But this man is a legend. He's basically the reason you love hip hop, one of the reasons you love hip hop. And we're going to basically watch him do his thing here and kind of nitpick and notice and learn and glean and see what we can see from here. So one of the first things I noticed when I looked at this is, let me see if you can guess it, class. What do you think it is? My video tripping. But one of the first things I noticed is that his outfit is minimalistic every single time. Every single time when you pay attention to the legends and they get on stage and they get ready to perform, they make sure they're comfortable. Bro just got a hat and a hoodie. It says, I think Mix Theory. I think that's what it says. It's branded. He's got his name, his merch on it. This lighting here for these televisions here, I think this is just to be eye catching. I don't think this is really, you know, supposed to set some kind of mood. I think it's just really just kind of like, hey, y'all, come on, we're about to get the party started kind of thing. But let's think about equipment now. So I don't really watch DJs. Like watching a DJ has to be really fun now that I'm thinking about what a DJ live performance is. But I'm going to assume the goal for the DJ is to be able to do the entire set. It's a 45-minute set. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I think the goal for the DJ is to do this entire set as comfortable as possible and make the crowd as immersed as possible. That's what I have in my head here, but we're going to see. We're going to see if that's true. This is the Grandmaster, all right? So he's going to tell us what you're supposed to do. So right now, I believe he's emceeing, but there is actually a lot of stuff I've noticed here. I'm trying to pay attention to what it is and see if I can identify some stuff. So the first thing we can see here is obviously the DJ controller, which is right in front of him, and it's split into 3 parts. So you have one disc here, another disc on his right with the turntable handles and things like that. So all of that is just classic, DJ equipment that's supposed to be there. But in the middle here, we have I want to say the mixer. So this is going to mix the 2 signals between these devices, right? So he can play the beat on one and then play the vocals on another. But he's only doing that because he turned the bass down on one and the treble up on another. And then it makes one solid sound with the bass of one song and the treble of another song into a whole different sound. You can do stuff like that. This mixer probably has computations in it to where it can start to make the record stutter in a certain rhythm. So like you ever heard DJs go da 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 ding, like you can do stuff like that. He probably has other effects that he can send in from his computer here, Grandmaster Flash, get it? And he can probably send sounds into this, push a button and things like that. There's probably another controller behind this camera, but noticing this is good to know because now you can kind of figure out what works for you as a DJ out there. I mean, my DJs out there checking this out, you probably already seen this video, but the next thing I notice is this little camera here. I hope we get some footage from this camera. I think we did. There's another camera behind him right here. And I don't know what this little guy is. I don't know what this is. I don't want to guess and get it wrong. Oh, it's a camera. It's a gimbal for another camera right here. I see it now. So we got 1, 2, 3 cameras. I think the one we're looking from our perspective is held in somebody's hands. So yeah, all that, again, golden footage. That's the footage nobody else has. Nobody has that footage. So it's good that he's recording all of this. So the next thing I notice is all these cables. If I was to put my money on it, he owned each one of these cables. Each and every cable right here he paid for. I guarantee you it was probably expensive as hell, but it was probably worth it between like the chargers and everything. And it's actually, wow, really good cable management. I didn't notice this right here, but this is really good and really good to notice because look, these cables are wrapped up really nicely too, because this teaches us as young artists how to take care of things we pay for. Okay. So these clearly have not been just jumbled up and wrapped up anywhere. They're not dusty. So even if they're, used, he's making sure they're clean and things like that. You ever seen like an old vacuum cord? Yeah, they don't look like that. And so that means that the connections are going to be good. The copper in the cables is going to work fine. And you technology guys, you understand what I'm pointing out, but it's kind of difficult for a musician who plays like analog or like a guitar acoustically or a singer to really like appreciate this without somebody pointing it out, usually. And then the next thing, of course, is this big old laptop stand. I think this stand right here has a fan underneath it. I had a laptop stand before, but my laptop stand was a keyboard stand. So where I had a keyboard stand, there was a second layer that you would sit a second keyboard, and I basically would put my laptop on there. That was my stand. But this one, being smart, he invested in one that has, it looks like Ethernet cable ports in there. It looks like it has a fan to keep his laptop cool and things like that. It's very awesome. And then, of course, we got our waters. This is a 16, 16, 16. Yeah, he's good. He's going to be straight for the rest of the show. I would have just put one water bottle. I know which water bottle I would have put there. You've seen it in my videos all the time. But I only say that because my my engineer brain goes to this. This is gonna be difficult to try to open if he needs a drink of water in the middle of a set. Okay, so I'd rather him to have like a pop top water bottle where he can just go boom and have like a lot of water ready to go, or just some other way to where he can just get directly to water. Because if he's got to pick up a bottle, twist the top, drink the water, put the top back on, make sure it don't fall over because it's a bum ass little bottle, like, you know. So I don't want him to have to think about that. And then the last thing, of course, is the speakers and monitors, but this is for the crowd. This is going out. We actually don't see his monitors. I'm gonna guess it's just these headphones here that he have on his head, so he's good to go. So we got speakers on both sides. I'm sure there's some subwoofers, maybe these giant speakers right here, or somewhere near the bottom underneath his feet. But I think that's pretty much gonna be his setup. After this, he can just get creative and rock out and make sure, you know, everything looks good. And again, people got their phones out. They're making sure they record, getting content. They're going to do it for their own pages, their own social media, but that's good for him as an artist because he's going to be able to basically monetize on the opportunities. And I think this is the camera right here that we were looking from. Yeah. Yep. That's him. That's my guy. Shout out to you, bro. You are killing it right now. I don't even know if you realize you just made history, but I think right now he's basically just setting up the crowd emotionally. He's emceeing right now, getting them started. He's probably explaining something very, very poignant to the history of 50 years of hip hop, like I tried to do earlier. But I do want to get into the live performance of it. Yeah, I think it was a good monologue that he was doing before that. So make sure you guys watch this and check out his monologue. We're unfortunately doing this without sound, so we have to hear nothing, just silence. But we're going to get into it. We don't know the set list. I don't think I have a set list to know what he's going to play next or play first, but we're going to see. Now I'm noticing that the graphics are changing. I'm thinking the graphics, whoever designed the graphics, there's actually a probably routine that they're syncing it up to. I don't know if it's directly synced up to maybe what he's doing, or maybe it's set up more so to whatever they're going to improvise towards. And so the next thing we can look towards is now we can get a better peek at what's on his side. He's got an extra phone here. That's probably just, you know, a phone for a phone. But I've noticed a lot of musicians, they carry phones, like a whole cell phone for different reasons. So like this could have just beats on it. Like he just have beats, or he just needs to plug it up to his computer, upload a new beat because he needs it. Like I've seen musicians do some crazy stuff with phones. And so I guess here we can kind of see what software she's using. I don't know what it is by looking at it. Let me know, DJs, what software is that? And I see some sticky notes. So these sticky notes could be a few different things. It can be a set list. Maybe it can be tempos. It can be maybe certain beats he knows goes together, because it's good, honestly, as a performer to have like tools in your arsenal. So like, you know, this song's going to mix well with this song. So we don't have to really think about it. We can just go. You know, we don't have to spend brain power trying to figure out, oh snap, what do we play next? You can really just get to work. Okay, boom. And we get another angle at the DJ table. So this must be the camera that's over his shoulder. And it's zoomed in pretty well too for us to get a nice shot. So these are faders. This is going to basically adjust the volume of each record. And then right here is going to, I'm sorry, this is the fader. This is going to help go between which record, so which record's playing, how loud each record's playing, and then this meter in the middle is going to tell him visually how loud each one is. So if it hits red, it's too loud. If it's yellow, it's getting close to too loud. If it's green, it might be a little too quiet or perfect, depending on what he's trying to do. I don't know what any of these buttons do because I would have to press them. I'm going to assume these are like beat pads, so they might be synced up to sounds from the laptop software, where it could be like a sample, maybe like a movie scene, or like, you know, explosions, gunshots, or something crazy like that. And then the next part up here, I think these are all probably just effects and things like that he can control analog. So it can be like echoes, reverbs, delays, and things like that. Maybe he can change the EQ on different signals and things like that. So maybe on the left side, he can change the treble right here, and then the mids, and then the bass here, and then the overall master, and then the same on this side. And right here, it looks like it has a beat counter. Oh shit, that's actually pretty cool if that is what that is. It looks like it's counting the beats from the signal it's receiving from the record. So what that means, if you don't know what that means, is that let's say this is a drum track. It's going boom. It's counting that. So it's telling him visually when that's happening on the beat. So that way he can sync that sound up with the other record visually, where he doesn't have to, try to listen to it and get it right. He can kind of just move them there. And it probably makes DJing a lot more efficient, because before this technology, he would have to basically use his instincts and kind of gauge timing, key signatures, you know, figuring out whether or not a measure is going to end on the right part, because you don't want a song to end here and then the new beat to start here and they not blend correctly. So there's a lot of things he has to think about that this might make easier for him. So that's actually pretty cool. And there is a lot of people recording, but again, I don't even think this is, just a Grandmaster Flash show. So these could be just really cool people just hanging out and just happen to be a part of history real quick. So the one thing I do like about the older DJs, the more conventional DJs, is scratching. I love scratching because scratching adds the human element to DJing, whereas a lot of DJs are good at mixing and like putting, songs and compilations and making them sync together. Scratching adds more of the improvisation of it, to where now you can kind of feel what rhythm he was thinking in that moment, where he can hit a 1 and a 2 and, or he can hit a 1E and a 2 and. So it's little things like that you won't really notice if you haven't, let's say, played an instrument, or if you don't read music and really hear it. That's why people around the world gravitated towards DJing once scratching became a thing, because we can, as musicians, we generally understand how the numbers are coming together as far as how many beats he's scratching to, how fast he's scratching to, and as well as like the improv it takes for it to sound good, because not everybody can just move their hands on the record and make it sound like better than the original. So it's a bit of flavor that you kind of have to learn. It was big in Japan back in like the early 2000s, but I don't know if people are still scratching around the world. I know in America we don't really scratch. Like if you find a DJ that's scratching, he might not be good. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like Americans, we kind of let that skill go. Kind of like rapping on the mic. Like we don't even rap on our shows anymore. So the reason they're putting their hands in the air is because he probably told them to. That's another thing I think hip hop is really mastered, is that being able to control the crowd is key. You want to be able to keep them engaged. And because again, it looks like just a technology show. Like these people probably aren't avid hip hop fans. They probably know of Grandmaster Flash, or just can realize the opportunity here. Or they're probably just, general hip hop fans and he's playing really good music. But the key thing is he's basically still selling himself to people who may not know his music, or may not know the, value of what he is, because it just is what it is. It's just the sake of what I was saying, about how fast technology has grown, where he has literally seen that change. Like he's seen it through and through. So he's probably looking at people in their eyes who probably have no clue, what a cassette tape looks like. As far as like, he's probably met students who come up to him and is like, oh yeah, my dad, got your music. And I don't know nothing about nothing, but their dad knows, but their dad's also not a musician. So it's a different conversation. But still a weird thing. Okay, yeah, it does work like that. So every time he moves the record, it changes the beat tracker. But it's a different conversation when you're having a talk with somebody who's seen a big change in society when they were a part of that change, versus somebody who watched it happen. So like I'm sure your parents watched it go from cassette tapes to iPods, but imagine trying to sell your records on cassette tapes and now you got to sell them on iPods. It's a different conversation. But this is actually pretty cool. So every time he scratches, it in real time shows him what sound is playing. So I wonder if he had to map out this record first, like let it play through and maybe learn the track or record the track, and then it can kind of keep up with him. Or even better, if it's doing that shit in real time. That's kind of crazy. So now it looks like he's trying to sync it up. And yeah, he did it, where he can sync up maybe the downbeat of one song with the downbeat of a second song. So now it's a perfect mix. So you're seeing him move around a lot and the crowd's not dancing. And it's simply because they're probably just not a hip hop dancing crowd. But the thing about him doing all that movement is that he's listening ahead of time what he wants to set up for you. So he hears music that he's playing in his headphones that is not playing towards the crowd. So if they do understand what he's doing, like if there are people out here who are DJing and like trying to really learn from this, they're probably in anticipation. Like they probably can't dance because they're trying to figure out, whoa, how's he gonna make this even cooler? And he did it. So don't think like they're not really appreciating it. It's more of a, it's an audio thing right now. He's not really emceeing as much. So it's really, really interesting to break down this stuff because now you can see how people are watching you too. You can see that, oh shit, this was a hype moment and they didn't even move. So you can really understand what works. Because I'm sure as a DJ, he's seeing this and going from the 1970s where people were hand clapping to every 2 and 4 beat to now they just have their phones and are staring at him. This has got to be an adjustment for him to have to like maneuver through. Like maybe he doesn't feel the need to MC as much. Maybe MCing has changed. We're like, yeah, now he can just kind of chat with the crowd and not really have to like line up a lyric or a bar or something like that. Because even people are nodding their heads and things like that, but people aren't really expecting like, some kind of like solid, perfect performance from him. Is really, really comfortable. And I think that was the goal from the beginning, especially when I started to look at, how his outfit was, how prepared he was. That's actually key too, because if you're really prepared, you're trying to make it comfortable. But yeah, all in all, I think this is a solid, like you can't go wrong with this. Again, we'd love to hear it and really break down like the audio of it, but we can really learn. Oh, there's another camera. We can really learn a lot more from the legends when we pay attention to what they're doing and why they're doing it. We can get caught up in like, oh man, I remember this song and stuff like that. But if you turn the music down for a second, if you just take a moment and really look at what they're doing and really think about like, all right, why does this work this way? You may actually learn a lot as far as what you can improve upon for your own musical set. Even like this DJing right here, this is kind of like crazy precision. Wow, that's actually kind of crazy. But because there's no audio, it doesn't click as heavy because we're not hearing the change. But right here, he's scratching and pretty much he's scratching this record, and in this hand, he's moving this track from one record to both records. And then he goes back and then slams it to the record on the right, which makes the transition fully finished. So if you've never seen DJing before, what he's doing is he's teasing one record, and then by the time the timing lands to where it feels right for you to go to the next record, he's basically made it sound like a bigger entrance for the newer song, from scratching, from teasing it, and then finally transitioning completely. And it's all about timing and again understanding like how that feels to the audience, which again I think can be very hard when people just have their phones out and they're just staring at you. They're just looking at you. So it's probably hard to be like, oh, now's the time to whip out this beat. So the fact that he can, maybe find a way to navigate that in today's time is pretty cool. So you can see here, if you pay attention to the controller, that he's trying to set up new things. So now he's picking a new track, maybe a new sound. He's moving. I wish we could see his hands right now, but yeah, he's moving the new record over, and I think he's allowing the record to move further along so that way he can sync the beginning of the beats. Yeah, you see him moving. So while the record on the left plays, he's syncing the one on the right so that way the downbeat can land on this 1, 2, or maybe 3, 4, whatever beat he needs it to land on for it to make sense. He knows what he's doing, right? But that's the key thing about understanding the nuances of being the creativity. Because if he didn't know how to do that, he would just rely on like, you guys to tell him what sounds good. But he knows what he's doing. And a lot of it comes from practice. Improv too. I'm sure he probably just, just turns on the music and just starts DJing in his house just so he can practice and be tight and be good at it. That's the key thing for a lot of musicians, is going to be the repetition and understanding like what's key for making what you want to happen consistently, especially if you're going to be performing live. I mean, Grandmaster Flash is the man, so he's he's the one you want to go to when it comes to DJing, and probably a lot more when it comes to technology. This was actually a pretty cool performance. I don't know where his laptop went, but this stand he has for his laptop is pretty tight. It has USB ports on the back of it as well. That was actually pretty cool. But this is all in all a great performance. I think you can't really go wrong as far as trying to figure out what to glean from this performance. But the biggest part that I think I want young musicians to take away from this is that there is a relationship between like the technology and tools you use as well as how you use them. Okay. Because the microphone has been a thing forever, but it wasn't wireless when it came out, like little things like that. So he had to master the microphone. It didn't matter whether or not it was, cool or not. So you might be using a little iPhone USB interface and your laptop. That's what you have. You still have to be Grandmaster Flash. So if this was interesting to you, make sure you hit that like button, and I would love to make more videos for you that are like this. And make sure I see you again next time, y'all. This is Concerts Without Sound, and I'm out, y'all. Peace.